last Republican obstruction and using the executive authorities available to me as president to do what I can on my own to address the border.
President Biden criticized Republicans yesterday after he unveiled new executive actions regarding asylum seekers at our southern border. The long-awaited order is a major shift for the administration's immigration policy. Joining us to discuss it is senior advisor and assistant to President Biden, Tom Perez. He joins us now from the White House. He's also the director of the White House's Office of Intergovernmental Affairs. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for being here with us.
Good to be with you, Robert.
You have heard the outrage from some Democrats about this on Capitol Hill. Outrage, sometimes disappointment. What would you say to them when they say this is a step too far for someone they believe is an ally in President Biden?
Well, what I would say is the following. The president continues to believe that we are a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. And we tried, and we had a bipartisan bill that was in the Senate, not once but twice. They turned it down. Would have had 1,500 new Border Patrol agents, would have had thousands of new asylum officers, would have had new asylum judges, money to combat the fentanyl crisis by putting technology at the border to detect fentanyl. These are important efforts, and they're not the only thing the president wanted to do. I would remind our friends that the president introduced comprehensive immigration reform day one. The best solutions are bipartisan solutions, like the one we had in 1996 when he was a senator. And unfortunately, Republicans want to demonize this issue. They want to weaponize it for political purposes. And so the president had to take this action. And what I would further say is the president was very clear in his speech that we have to secure the border. And he explicitly said, and in the weeks ahead, we're going to also be talking about how to make our immigration system more just and fair.
So the president believes he was stymied by Congress, took executive action. It's an understandable move in the sense that presidents have often taken executive action when they feel like they can't get what they want together with Congress. But what is the actual reality of this executive order, Mr. Perez, when you think about the undocumented worker who's here in the United States right now? What is the direct effect this order would have on their life?
Well, someone who's already here, who's awaiting an asylum hearing, you know, what we tried to do in the bipartisan bill was add more asylum officers so that we could hear cases faster. One of the biggest pull factors that drives people to come to the United States is the fact that our asylum system is overwhelmed right now. And while it should take 6 months to adjudicate an asylum case, and the reality, as the president pointed out, is it's taking up to 6 years. And so the smugglers know that, and they bring people to the border, and they take advantage of them, and we can't have that. It's a danger to them, and the system is overwrought. That's why the president did what he did moving forward. And we're continuing to work very closely with the government of Mexico, and we've been able to reduce the flows by about 60% over the last few months as a result of the cooperation with Mexico. But we still have more work to do, and absent cooperation from the Republicans in Congress, the president had no choice. And we're going to continue to monitor the situation, but I think this was a necessary step that he had to take.
What do you need specifically from the new leadership in Mexico to make this work efficiently in the eyes of the administration?
Well, we've had a lot of collaboration and cooperation. The president spoke to President López Obrador twice in the last few days and has been in regular contact. Our teams have been in regular contact. And if you look actually at the entire region, you know, we've been working together with the 22 countries in the hemisphere. What we've done, among other things, Robert, just to give your viewers an example of the innovation we've put in place, we have secure mobility offices. These are locations in the region. So you can go to Costa Rica, you know, rather than taking that treacherous trip through the Darien Gap, go to Costa Rica and make an application. We've been putting those secure mobility offices elsewhere in the region. Those are examples of things we're doing. We have lawful pathway programs. What we're trying to do is get people to come to the port of entries. Don't enter between the port of entries. It's dangerous, and you can get hurt, you can die. And so the collaboration with Mexico has been indispensable to our success in lowering the encounters. But we still have to do more, and we were obviously, we've communicated with the government of Mexico. I'm very confident that the collaboration that has been in place for quite some time will continue with them.
Between now and the election, do you believe talks on immigration on Capitol Hill are effectively dead because of the campaign politics that surround the issue? Or do you really believe there's a possibility of legislation before November?
Well, I mean, Donald Trump has made clear. We had a bipartisan deal negotiated. It was a tough deal. I mean, again, 1,500 more Border Patrol agents, 4,000 more asylum officers, more asylum judges, more money to combat fentanyl. The Border Patrol Union endorsed the proposal. Why did it fail? Because Donald Trump said, we can't give Joe Biden a victory. That's not how governance works. It's not
so you're
about
not
who
optimistic.
wins and loses. No, I'm not optimistic because, the other side has clearly said we want to weaponize the issue. We don't want to solve the problem. Robert, what's really telling is when the president announced what he said yesterday, he was surrounded by border city mayors along the Texas-Arizona border. These are folks who, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, they don't want this political football. They just want problem solved.
And I ran into some of those members, Democratic members, after the White House event, and some of them were telling me privately they're glad the president did this because they're in tough districts where this issue is at the fore of people's minds. But those in more progressive districts and some urban areas feel a lot differently. This is an issue. We'll have to have you keep coming back, Tom Perez. We really appreciate you coming by this time. Thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Robert.